I think we still have the same issue. Can you still hear me? Is that working? Weak. All right. Apparently it's working. No idea what changed, but all right. Told him good to introduce myself now. My name is Shane Vitale. I'm the founder and CEO of Vitale. I'm also the lead designer. Started the company about 6 years ago, and I'm sitting in my office on Queen Street. I don't know if you guys have any questions or anything for me here. I've never really done one of these before, and I'm a little bit awkward in front of a camera, so help me out. How did I get my start? It was pretty organic for me. I wasn't planning to start a business. I think, a lot of people go into it and they're like, I just want to start a business. I want to start a business. But for me, I just was backpacking through Southeast Asia after I finished school, and I wanted something made for myself. And that just kind of spawned into a little bit of a kind of a mini passion during that trip. And I brought home some of what I made and planned to give them away as gifts, and people just really kind of jumped on it. And I realized, maybe there's something there, and maybe I could make enough money to pay for my next backpacking trip. I didn't really anticipate, starting a global brand at the time, but as things continued to roll forward, I started to find more and more opportunities and realized that, maybe I'd stumbled upon a bit of a niche. Yeah, I think the initial inspiration was during that trip. There were a lot of master carvers and silversmiths, and they're making all kinds of really cool jewelry, but it was impressive jewelry, but it wasn't really anything that I'd ever wear. Most of it was very kind of like local style and very artisan. But I've always really liked a little bit more of a street kind of contemporary style, so I just figured maybe I could put my own spin on what they were doing. So that kind of, that was the first big push. That was kind of what initiated everything for me. But from that point moving forward, I think what continued to inspire me was just the excitement of getting to create, exactly what I actually wanted to wear and, what I wanted to, bring into the world. Sorry, still having a bit of technical difficulties here. Sorry guys, I think I've figured something out. Nothing was showing up in the chat, so I wasn't really able to respond to anything. What's up here? Did you study jewelry design? No, I didn't actually. I really had no intention of going into fashion. When I was in school, I studied political science and marketing. Actually, I added. Hey guys, I think I've figured something out. Nothing was showing up in the chat, so I wasn't really able to respond to anything. Here, did you study jewelry design? More technical difficulties. Sorry, guys. Hopefully this is working now. Local brand to a global one. I wouldn't really say that it was a jump. I mean, we've been kind of building and building over the last, I guess it's almost 6 years now. Very small, just kind of selling to friends. And then, to the kind of the local shops, and then you just keep growing from there. You make a plan. I think it's really, really important to, at the very least, have, your next year planned out, and you kind of keep driving at it. So, if you're currently sold in 3 stores, maybe set your sights on 6 or 10 or, whatever you think is achievable for the next 12 months. And then you just keep growing. As much as we might be considered by some a global brand at this point, there's still so much room to grow. Like it's, astronomical amount of growth left. And, to continue growing, just do the exact same thing. You just keep setting new goals and charging towards those. And, eventually you get to a point where you can't do it yourself. So you start bringing in other people and building your team. Do you think contacting with others made a difference in your career? Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like there's no possible way I could be here if it wasn't for the people I've worked with, the people that have inspired me. And the team that we've been able to build. Like the first person that I started working with is now my business partner, Jason. He's really the other half of the company. He came on after I'd been doing it for about less than a year. I can't even recall exactly anymore. But when he came on board, he really did become the other half. He was everything that I wasn't, and that made a really, really strong team. But we were able to continue bringing on other people, like our close friend Zach Vitiello, who's now our creative director. And it just kind of went from there. You just continue to fill the gaps and realize where your weaknesses are, and then find somebody who can help kind of fix those weaknesses, or just fill the gap, really. What brands inspire you? That's a great question. I'm inspired by an incredible amount of brands, though. I worked for Red Bull. I was fortunate enough to work for Red Bull when I was younger, and I was always a really huge fan of that brand, just because, for the world of action sports, which has always been a pretty huge part of my life, and for the world of music, etc. I just think that they're a really, really powerful brand, and they've created an image around a drink, but I don't really think that people even necessarily just think about the drink anymore. They've really built something bigger than that, and I think that's really impressive. Product, they are like a true. Other brands that I really love, even kind of living in a similar realm to us, I'm a big fan of Zane Robe to represent I Love Ugly. These are all people that are in a similar space, but I definitely admire. I think they're all doing an amazing job. I grew up being a huge fan of Nixon, the influence, from them, and I have them to thank for that inspiration. And really, though. What's my advice for people like you, as in musicians? I don't know. I don't think there's a huge difference between being a musician, being an athlete, or being an entrepreneur. I think that all of them just require the same kind of focus and dedication. And I keep quoting this, and I'm starting to feel cheesy saying it because it's not my quote, but it's an amazing one. Muhammad Ali, he always just says, "Know your why." And it sounds really simple, but I think for anyone who's really serious about becoming a musician or athlete, etc., they know their why. They know why they wake up each day. They know why they spend countless hours practicing or reading or executing. So I think that's probably my biggest advice. Like, if you really, really want it, and you know why you want it, and it's for the right reasons, I think it's going to help answer a lot of your other questions. Any designers that inspire you? Um, as cheesy as it sounds, I'm inspired almost every day by my creative director, Zach. He's an incredibly talented guy. You're probably wondering about fashion designers, but I think he's a designer that I'm always really impressed by. As far as actual designers go, I think I'd lean more towards the brands as a whole, because, to be perfectly honest, I don't know who all their designers are. But I've mentioned some of them earlier. I've always been a really, really big fan of Tiger Jeans. I think they do an amazing job. Again, I wish I knew the designers behind the brand. I would assume that there's more than one at this point, but they do a pretty amazing job of continuing to come out with new progressive ideas and designs, and trying to fit in anywhere, which is something that I really appreciate. I've always been really impressed by Rick Owens. Like, as much as I don't really wear any of his stuff, I just think he's really cool. He does a really great job of pushing the envelope, and I think he's done a lot for fashion to kind of his eyes about what can be done. Yeah, I mean, opening this store, we've actually opened a second one, maybe only a month after doing so. The real challenge in opening this first location, which I'm actually sitting in at the moment, was the fact that we took a building that for the last 25 years was actually just completely abandoned. So it's a historical building. So we literally took it over as a shell. It didn't have electrical, didn't have plumbing, didn't have, it literally didn't even have water lines. So it was just a huge project that we really didn't, it can be a big project, but we had no idea what the actual scale of that would be and how long it would take. And we didn't realize we were going to need several architects that, you know, could come in and figure out how to get it up to code. So that was a pretty huge project, but the second store that we opened was significantly easier because we didn't have to do anything structural. We didn't have to bring in architects. And so that was a pretty major lesson learned. You know, like next time we open a store, we're probably not going to pick one that we have to fully renovate. But, you know, as far as, you know, how difficult it goes, or sorry, as far as how difficult it was goes, I'm pretty happy the first one was such a nightmare and was so difficult because we learned a lot of lessons so that when we move into doing these kinds of projects in other cities, you know, we're a little bit more prepared for what could happen because obviously your hometown is a lot easier than, you know, when you go and start doing it elsewhere. But, you asked, was it difficult opening a physical shop after being only online? We weren't actually online. Like by the time that we opened this location, we were sold in about, I think about 650 or 700 locations. So, you know, we had a pretty large wholesale business already, and, you know, we have our own warehouse and distribution facilities. So it wasn't super challenging to kind of here and really get things running. We'd also done a lot of major pop-up shops, and, you know, we'd run them for several months at a time. So that was basically like running a retail store. We just didn't have anything, you know, completely permanent. What's the most difficult thing while making my way up? Um, I feel like that kind of changes on a daily basis. You know, sometimes you think something's the most difficult thing, and then the very next day something is more difficult. You know, I think one of the common challenges that entrepreneurs do face, though, and something that we face on a very regular basis, is just cash flow crunches. Especially in your retail businesses, you know, there's a lot of money that will go out, and it's a long time before it cycles back in. So you have to be very, very careful about how you're spending your money, and, you know, make sure that you've really planned out your cash flow for the next however long it needs to be, depending on what your cash flow cycle is. And, you know, like for us, we've been really fortunate in that we've grown very quickly. The challenge with growing quickly is that it requires a lot of money. A lot of people don't quite understand. But, you know, when you're growing quickly, it means that you're usually spending more money than you're actually bringing in just to keep up with that growth. So that's, you know, that's certainly something that we've found challenging. Another thing that can be really challenging is, you know, for me, I'm really fortunate that I work with all of my friends. But, you know, that can obviously be pretty challenging too. It can be difficult, you know, finding the best way to draw a line between friends being your employees and your friends being your friends. You know, and I think that I've done a decent job of that, but, you know, there have definitely been some challenging days, and, you know, there have been situations that no one really wants to deal with. Like, you know, there was a time where I had to fire a friend, and that was pretty brutal. Like that, you know, I lost a lot of nights of sleep and want to have to do again, but it is a possibility. But, you know, these are some of the prices that you pay, you know, for setting yourself up in the situation I have. I wouldn't recommend it for everyone if you don't think that you're very good at dealing with people, or if you don't think that you have friends who are, for lack of a better way to explain it, like emotionally have a high EQ or emotional quotient. It's probably not a very good idea to work with them. Where are the metals sourced? Basically, all of our production for Vitali is done in China. But we do have a second brand called Clocks and Colors, and that brand actually has silver, silver products, and those pieces are actually done in Bali. But the stainless steel pieces for that brand are still done in China as well. So yeah, basically everything is sourced from China. Sorry, since nobody else is writing anything, I'll kind of I'll build on that because this is something that I think is really important, and are starting to learn it. But unfortunately, it's something that I still feel the need to kind of educate people on. There's still kind of this really, I don't like using the word because it sounds harsh, but ignorant stigma about the fact that things made in China are bad quality, and that's just really not true. The fact of the matter is, most things can be made in China these days, and they can be made really well. It's just a matter of what you want and what you pay for. So, like we're really, really obsessed with offering the best quality for the best price. And, that sounds cheesy, like a sales pitch, but when I started the brand, I started selling to friends, and that kind of developed our whole motto, which is designed with our friends in mind. And that actually did develop into being our model. So it was really important for us to make sure that the quality was the best that it could be, and the price was lowest, because you would never sell your friends crap, right? So, you need to really the things. Any plans to open up other stores elsewhere? Yeah, like 100%. Opened a couple. We've learned kind of the ins and outs. I hope there's not too much more that we need to learn, because, like I said, some of it was a bit of a nightmare. But once the doors open, it's one of the most amazing feelings. Having these retail stores is a very small part of our income. Most of our income comes from online and from our wholesale business, but having these flagship stores, it just gives you something. It gives you something kind of tangible to feel grateful about every day. And when I walk in here every day, I feel proud, and I know that I should feel proud of everything, but it's a little bit different. Like when you walk in here, you can just feel it. I don't know how else to explain it. In terms of popularity, how did you get yourself this far? Like, was it just one chance and you just took advantage of that? Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I have other investments now and I have other projects on the go. And that's kind of how things tend to go in entrepreneurship. Like one thing, you start to have disposable income, you start to make a network of people who are doing similar things, and then you get other opportunities. You also start to get better at seeing other opportunities. Like, since starting this company, I've had countless business ideas because I become, more aware of things that are going on around me. I spend more and more time in Asia, and I see all kinds of possibilities there. But yeah, I mean, really, I saw this opportunity and I decided I was going to go for it 110%. And, when I say that, I mean it. Like, I put every last cent that I had just out of school, which is kind of ridiculous. Like I worked 15 or 16 hours a day for several years without taking a day off. Not to say that that's what everyone should do or needs to do, but I was determined, and, there wasn't really anything that could stop me. How did I team up with Axe? It was an old friend that reached out to me, somebody that I went to. Well, I didn't go to class with him, but we actually lived in the same residence here in Toronto. He'd been following what I'd been doing, and he saw this project and thought that I'd be a good fit for it. So I was pretty excited. Like, when he came to me, I loved the idea. Like, I've always thought the opportunity to mentor other people and give back that way would be something. And this is a great platform to do that. Yeah, we're from Toronto. Well, I mean, I'm not actually from Toronto. I grew up a couple hours north of here. I'm actually from Aurelia, which is actually where a lot of my team is from too. So we're a bunch of small town kids, really. But I mean, I've lived in Toronto now for so. Can you talk about your other brand? Yeah, so my other brand is called Clocks and Colors. Um, it's a brand that I kind of started as a passion project, a bit of a side project. It's kind of like a big brother to Vitali. It's a little bit more masculine. It's actually just we call it a men's brand, which I don't really like to do. We have a lot of women that support it, but it's a lot more rugged. It's a little bit higher end, and it's more driven, kind of built around pillars like rock and roll, motorcycles, kind of like old school tattoo culture and old school barbershop culture. And it was just something that I started because I wanted to take a little bit of a different design direction, and I didn't really feel like it kind of meshed properly with the Vitali. And yeah, so I just ran with it. And the nice thing about having one brand already is that you've learned a lot of the lessons. You have the manufacturing, so it was a lot easier to do the second time around. And both brands are doing really well now. We're actually on a major collaboration with a very, very, very A-list celebrity right now. It is, unfortunately, and I don't even know for sure that it'll go through, but if it does, it's huge for us. Yeah, if you guys want to check that out, though, it's just at Clocks and Colors. Colors is spelled the Canadian way, though, so Colours. What inspires my aesthetic? Yeah, I mean, you're asking if it's daily life, friends, music, films, brands, and the answer is just yes. It's all of those things. The most inspiration just from walking down the street. Toronto, I've always really loved kind of the general Toronto street style. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's really hard to say. Like sometimes there's no real true inspiration. Sometimes I just sit down and start sketching, and I draw a line one direction, and I like how it goes. But yeah, I think overall it's a combination of everything, of friends, of I don't know if I would say music, but definitely friends, films, other brands. I try not to take too much inspiration from other brands, to be honest. It just things start to really get cloudy when you start doing that, and I think that that's a pretty big thing that happens, especially in this world, in this industry. So we've done our best to kind of separate ourselves, but and unfortunately, we've actually dealt with a lot of other brands just completely stepping on our toes and literally carbon copying our stuff. But we're doing our best and priding ourselves on the fact that we don't really do that, and that we find our inspiration elsewhere. What do I think about Toronto Fashion Week? I don't. I wish I could say that I had any kind of real opinion on it, but I don't. Um, I think that it's important to have those kinds of platforms, but it's a different kind of fashion than what we do, or at least I feel that way. We're more lifestyle. We're more kind of your elevated everyday kind of essentials. Fashion Week is a little bit more of a platform for, I don't want to say you're traditional, but you're more like your capital F fashion designers. So the people who really, really add the art element. And that's not to say that we're not designers and we're not adding creativity to what we do, but I think is a different thing. But I'm glad it's there, and I'm hoping that it continues to grow and gets more elevated. Toronto, I think it's really on its way up. I hope it continues to climb too. Like even from my experience, like when I'm in New York New York or Vegas or LA for trade shows or whatever it might be, I'm noticing in the last couple of years, people are paying a lot more attention to what we're doing here, and I hope that translates to other things like Toronto Fashion Week as well. Would you ever work with another medium like painting, photos, etc.? I've tried my hand at photography here and there, and it's kind of a laughing stock amongst my amongst my team. So I'm not going to go ahead and say that I'm going to be doing photography anytime soon. Painting, you never really know. Like I definitely think that it's something that I could be drawn to at one point or another. I've never had any formal training or practice, or I didn't even get to study it when I was in school. To be honest, when I was in grade school, they did actually exempt me from art classes because I'm colorblind. I mean, that was interesting, given that I've kind of gone into a design world. But yeah, I mean, I think I would love to explore other mediums at some point. I don't really know what they'd be at this time. I could definitely see myself doing woodwork stuff at some point. I've always really liked furniture and woodwork, and I like doing stuff with my hands when I get a chance to. Even little things like when I was a kid, I used to build all my skateboard ramps and things like that. I didn't really have access to the best tools, so I'd literally just use hand saws, but it was pretty fun. Do I usually work with celebrities? No, we've worked with the odd celebrities here and there. Like we worked with Zed's Dead a couple years ago. We've worked with and some other people just for just for little collaborations or kind of more charitable efforts, things like that. But I think we're continuing to grow, and we're starting to land on more and more people's radar. And complicated, like when you're really small, like it's pretty hard to appeal to a celebrity other than maybe making them something. But as far as collaborations go, I think we're starting to reach that level where we can offer something to them as well. That's, a little bit more than just, here's a free ring. Yeah. I mean, I think sculpting could be a pretty cool medium. I've definitely never tried it, but like, it's working with your hands. Like, I have no idea. I could be really great at it or really terrible at it. My guess is probably pretty terrible, but I don't think I'd be opposed to trying. Modeling. Yeah, no, I mean, I modeled when I was younger. It wasn't really for me, to be perfectly honest. I just a bit more in control, if I'm being completely honest. And being behind the camera just didn't really give me that kind of creative control that I was looking for. I think it was when I got to be behind the camera and start really start kind of directing the shoots and choosing the models and choosing the outfits and those kinds of things, that I really started to enjoy the whole creative process behind photo shoots. I'm going to be winding down probably at about 5 after 8. Sorry, I'm winding down now, but I'll probably be ending the chat at 5 after 8. If anyone has any other questions, like feel free to fire them off. I'll get through all of them. How many Vitali pieces do you wear a day? Today I've got 6 on. Pretty accurate, probably anywhere between 4 and 6, and then I usually have a couple clocks and colors pieces on as well. I think that number just continues to grow year over year because we just keep introducing more and more product. Like we're we're working on denim now. We're working on long sleeve collared shirts. You know, eventually we'll do jackets, et cetera, and then that'll just, the thing that motivates me the most and inspires me the most is the opportunity to design exactly what it is that I want to wear. And it's pretty nice too, because I can be my own fit model. So I just fit everything exactly to my body, which is a huge perk. I'm just going to continue designing more stuff that I can wear. Can you come visit me? Funny story. I had somebody tell me more difficult to reach than the US president, which I'm fairly confident it's very untrue, but you know, I think the message was received loud and clear on my end. And yeah, I mean, I have friends of mine who have given me a hashtag that's just hashtag very busy. I mean, you're welcome to stop by. We're at 505 Queen Street West. That's the flagship store. But I mean, as far as seeing me, you know, if I'm here, I'll say hi, of course. But I don't know. I don't know how likely it is that I'll be able to get pulled out of the meeting or whatever it is that I'll be doing. I'm also away 6 to 7 months a year just on business, so it's pretty chaotic. Thinking of starting a sunglasses brand, what advice would I give? I think the first thing that I would start with is first thing you need to do is find your manufacturing before you do much of anything else. So, you know, a lot of people will do things like go to Alibaba.com. That's a good starting point for sourcing. But I think what's better if you can get the chance, like if you can do this, and I know that, you know, not everyone can do it obviously, but I would look for major trade shows, manufacturing trade shows, somewhere like Hong Kong. Hong Kong typically has the best ones. And I would go over there and I would meet with as many different sunglass factories as you can. Platform for that, because you can meet with so many in one day. It's incredible. You can hold their products. You can see the quality right there on the spot. One of the biggest challenges when you start is not having a strong manufacturer. So, you know, if you can go there and you can meet with enough of them and make sure that, you know, the factories that you want to work with have a good quality product right at the gates, they can communicate properly. I think that's a really important starting point. Outside of that, I would definitely recommend writing a business plan. It's one of those things where when you start doing it, you kind of feel like you're doing a school project and you're like, why am I doing this? And to be perfectly honest, a year from the point that you wrote that business plan, it's going to be ridiculous. You're going to realize that you had no clue what you were talking about. What it does do is really help you kind of start to focus and start to organize your thoughts. And it starts to help you realize what it's going to be self-motivated and to really have to actually, you know, make yourself do something. Because if you can't sit down and write a business plan, you certainly aren't going to be able to sit down and run your business, because the fact of the matter is there's a million things that you're not going to want to do that are probably significantly more boring than writing a business plan. But, you know, that first step will be kind of the proof that you at least have enough in you to write that business plan, but probably enough to, you know, continue powering forward and doing things. All right. I think we'll probably call it there unless anybody wants to kind of throw in another question. Thanks for kind of stopping by. Apologies about, you know, all the technical difficulties earlier. I hope it wasn't too difficult to find us again. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if or when I'll be doing another one of these, but, you know, if you do, hopefully you'll tune in. All right. Thanks a lot, guys.